my name is Caitlin Williams, and today I am going to be evaluating the rhetorical appeals that Sam uses in his speech to Frodo in Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. To give you a little background, Frodo is given a ring and sent on a journey to keep it out of the hands of evil. Sam is also sent on this journey and becomes a close confidant to Frodo along the way. The journey is so rigorous that Frodo begins to give up, but Sam knows that they need to keep going. Sam begins to use emotional appeals to help persuade this. He uses a story to begin this speech and ultimately uses it to relate to Frodo's emotions and outlook on their situation.
It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy?
Sam begins to tell a story about the war to compare their situation to that of the story. This is meant to cause Frodo to feel sad and to ultimately get him to confront his feelings. A good example of rhetorical appeals is questions. These questions are meant to form an internal dialogue within the audience or listener. Sam uses this by saying, "How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad happened?" This is used to relate to Frodo, but to also cause Frodo to truly think about his answer to what is happening around them. However, these questions are a good example due to their underlying point that they bring to the table, while also not having any particular answer. Throughout all of this, you begin to notice that Sam is using a very sad and dark tone, but this, as you will see, is meant to later add motivation and a much lighter tone to the speech overall.
But in the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow, even darkness must pass.
Sam begins to use the tone of motivation, and the whole speech begins to shift to a much lighter note. This is in order to build Frodo's emotions and to cause him to have a better outlook on their situation. Another rhetorical appeal he uses is comparison. He begins to compare Frodo to some of the characters that are a part of the story he is telling, to ultimately get Frodo to relate himself to those outcomes that take place in the speech. He then uses his final statement at the end of his speech to leave emotional resonance.
What are we holding on to, Sam? There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. And it's worth fighting.
By saying this, he states exactly what his goal of this speech is, and leaves Frodo with something to think about and process. Sam also uses other rhetorical strategies. He, of course, uses tone to his advantage throughout this, by going from a sad state to a very motivational and uplifting tone. Sam also uses repetition and consistently uses Frodo's name throughout the speech in order to keep him listening. After all of this, we can draw the conclusion that Sam uses rhetorical devices to persuade Frodo through emotional appeals. He uses a story, tone, repetition, and even emotional contrast in order to give a great speech that resonates with the audience. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.